What's up, guys, and welcome back for another solo mining episode. As a follow-up to the last episode, I know there's a lot of questions about whether or not it's smart to actually have a porpoise or an orca as your second account, if compression is actually worth it in the end, and would it be more wise to have a second hulk. I don't think it would actually be wise to have a hulk, just like you wouldn't take a hulk out by itself, because even though the cycle time is really low, you're be coming off of grid a lot, even unboosted, to empty that out. Compression, and the reason I usually run a porpoise and a hulk as a 2-account duo, is because your only limiting factor there in terms of coming off grid and time syncing yourself with travel is the heavy water. But I want to kind of just go over the procedure I use and how I kind of prep and go out and how I kind of manage the compression when the porpoise is paired with just a single hulk. So normally, let's go and bring our inventory up here. I usually leave with the fleet hangar completely full of heavy water, and then the fuel bay completely full of heavy water. Now, when we start mining with that hulk is just going to compress in its own hold and keep the compressed ore there. As we move through cycles, as we start using heavy water out of the fuel bay, we will take the fuel from the fleet hangar and drag it into the fuel bay to fill it up again. Now, once you start getting space available in the fleet hangar is going to act as the transitional point for the compressed ore to move it into the ore hold. Once we have the space in the fleet hangar, all of the compressed ore from the hulk is going to start getting moved to the porpoise. And then from there, since you will have downtime because of cycle time and stuff, you'll have some time on this character to kind of move stuff around. You'd come in here and drag this compressed ore from the fleet hangar down into the mining hold. Now, you're going to run out of heavy water long before you fill up, and that's the limiting factor. But that allows you to stay out on grid for a long time, and it cuts out the transition time dumping that ore. I don't personally use containers like freight containers. I know it's a very popular strategy. I think that it's also kind of a time sink too, because after you're done mining, before you can really kind of button things up or whatever, you gotta go collect those with ships that are being able to pick them up and things like that. I prefer to, when I leave grid, to be completely done. The other thing too is you don't always have compression in the station in some of these high-sec systems, and if you do, those systems could be potential targets for people looking for miners because they know that they're attracted to stations with compression, or attracted to systems with stations that have compression. So you save yourself a lot of headache by just bringing yourself your own ways of compression. The other thing too is when you were just taking, even with like double Mackinaw, you'll be able to stay out for a long time. That's like 88,000 plus cubic meter volume before you have to kind of transport it off. You also have to take into account how much time it's going to take to take all that ore from your station that's uncompressed and take it somewhere to compress it, or putting it in a ship and taking it back out in space if you have a porpoise as well. So I want to kind of explore non-boosted, non-compression options in this episode with 2 accounts. So we're really going to be looking at the performance for 2 Mackinaws and how long we're able to stay out until we fill up. I already know because one Mackinaw with the system that I'm in is 20 minutes. So we'll be able to go out for 20 minutes and we'll be able to do about 90,000 cubic meters of ore before we have to go out. That will take us 20 minutes, and we can do that. If you take that over an hour, then it adds up. And what I'll do is we'll look at the math kind of like we did yesterday for that as well, and compare those 2 things before we get started. But it really is kind of just up to you on how you want to like configure. In most cases, I would suggest, if you're only 1 account miner, do a Mackinaw. When you get ready to add a second account, probably, and you don't really want to do a porpoise, then you go with a second Mackinaw. The hulks have really low cycle time, but they fill up way too quick. And also, if you've seen the other fit videos and stuff like that, then the Mackinaw can be a little bit more tanky as well. And then if you ever do put a a porpoise in the equation, then the porpoise would technically make more sense being the third account, because then at that point you're able to be at a level of profit for the yield that you're going to get by adding those boosts. Now here are the numbers, and this is the same notes that we had yesterday. So what I did was we're calculating 2 Mackinaws, and we're going to compare that with the 1 Hulk plus the porpoise. So instead of looking up like the prices of Plex today and also the Veldspar price today, I'm using the same numbers as yesterday to give you a better idea. So the Veldspar value yesterday was 12.17, and then we were calculating Plex at 5.2 million. So if you watched the video yesterday, some of this stuff is going to look familiar. You can see right here with 2 accounts, Hulk and a booster, you're going to do 36 million an hour, and you'd have to do 4.8 hours a day to cover both those accounts, right? Now these are the numbers right here for the 2 Mackinaws, and this is based on my configuration here. So each strip miner is going to give you 16.5 cubic meters a second, so you times that by 2, and then we're going to times that by 2 since we have 2 Mackinaws. So that ends up being 66 cubic meters per second. You're going to mine about 2.3 million Veldspar in an hour, which equates to about a little over 28 million in value. And using the same math as we did yesterday, we're looking at 6 hours on that configuration. Now, there's a reason I don't recommend the 2 Mackinaws if you have 2 accounts, is because of this. It's significantly higher as terms of how many hours you have to do a day to cover Omega, and also you have to come off grid. You'll have to come off grid every 20 minutes. And what by off grid means is, like, if it's as simple as just, you know, taking it to a structure in system that has compression or whatever, then, you know, you're warping those guys off grid, you're docking them, unloading them, taking them back out, warping back to the belt, getting back into position, turning lasers back on. And that adds up. That adds up a lot. Now, a lot of you are going to be sitting there saying, okay, well, the reason it's 4.8 a day as opposed to 6 is because it's a Hulk. It has less cycle time, and it responds a lot better to boost, which is true, right? But you're not going to do 2 Hulks without boost. The cycle time's good, but you're going to come off grid even more. You're going to come off grid even more than you would with the Max, which even adds more of a time sink. Because that's the thing, is it's like not always is it about yield, but it's also about time management and efficiency. So the longer you're able to just stay on the belt and keep those lasers on and just manage everything with compression instead of like freight containers and stuff like that, the better you're going to end up being. Because like if everything's getting compressed and it's all stored in the porpoise, when you're done or you need to take a break or something happens, you warp off grid, you don't have to worry about freight containers being left on there, and you have to go over and get them and pick them up, and it's this whole thing, right? So at least for me, I like procedure being simplistic and efficient, and not too many moving parts. When you're already going to have a lot of moving parts when you start adding a bunch of accounts, so just keep that in mind. So I guess in order to expand on this a little bit, just because a lot of people weren't actually like talking about double Mac, they were actually talking about like double Hulk, and just had that porpoise pilot being a Hulk instead. So we can kind of do the math on that as well, and we'll kind of do that here. So this would be basically 2 Hulks. I'll kind of walk through this a little bit. And so we know by the numbers yesterday, if we do 2 Hulks, we're going to look at 88 cubic meters a second. That's going to be our number there. So first off, we need to go ahead and get our trusty calculator up here. And so first what we need to do is we need to go 88, and we need to divide that by 0.1, which is the volume of 1 unit of Veldspar. And then we times that, that's a second, so we times that, that's a minute, 52,800 a minute, times that again by 60 for the hour. So that gives us 30.1 million there. So that's going to give us 3.1 million Veld. There we go, Veldspar an hour. And then we can also take that same number, and then we can multiply it by 12.17, which is the number we used yesterday, and it'd be 38. Because like I told you yesterday, the porpoise basically 2x's the boost, technically 2x the Hulk's yield. So if you took the boost away and you just added another Hulk, you're still going to be doing the same amount of volume. The difference here is you won't have compression, which means you're going to be coming off grid even faster than the max would. We'll go ahead and do hours per day, just in case anybody is also just trying to figure out if they want to try to omega or anything or not. And so essentially this same math here, and like I round down these hourly numbers, lowball them just to give ourselves a little bit more of a realistic realistic view on what we can expect. So we're going to use the same value we did yesterday, times that by 500 plex, and then we also have 2 accounts, so we need to times that by 2, and then what we'll do is we will divide that by 38 million, 4.5 hours for the 2 hulks. So you save a little bit of time, but I don't know, compression for me is just super important, because it just makes everything so easy. Because for me, I stage everything in like an MPC station, so when I am using a station with compression, every time I come off grid, I go to that station, compress. You can compress without moving it out of the ship. You can just dock, compress it inside the ore hold, undock, and then put it on the stockpile. But it's so much easier just to do that all on field, and then when you're done, you just go back and you're done, right? But I definitely, just based on what you guys have been talking about and stuff in the comments, it's like I want to be able to try to give you guys the numbers and stuff for as many of these configurations as possible. Because 2 Mackinaws is great, more tank. I think the biggest draw between the 2 Mackinaws is it's not coming off grid, but once every 20 minutes or so. So tank and less time sink. Hulks are faster or more of a time sink. But it's like if you're in a volatile system where there's kind of a lot of activity and you're just about getting as much ore as you can in the shortest amount of time, then yeah, that's 2 hulks is probably going to be your bread and butter there. Now for this test, what we're going to do is both these alts add the same skills, so their efficiency is matched regardless if they're in matching hulks or Mackinaws. So what we're going to do, we're going to run a side by side. One alt is going to be running a Mackinaw, one is going to be running a hulk, and they will start mining at the same time, and they will mine the exact same ore. The test will conclude once the Mackinaw fills up completely, and then we will compare the yield. And also this is going to hopefully provide some good insight on what you have to actually do to actively manage hulks to keep pace with a Mackinaw, right? Now we're going to be doing a lot of things to try to match pace with the Mac here, and that's going to be keeping these guys off of the same rock, which means that we're going to have to make a bookmark that's different than our normal one, so that they're on different sides of the belt. But also the Hulk is going to be essentially cutting and doing short cycles, so we're going to be actively looking at its ore hold. So for instance, we do like almost 5,000 cubic meters on a cycle between the total of both of the lasers. So like for instance, if you had only 2,000 cubic meters left to fill your ore hold, then we would technically cut that cycle halfway through. We'd be actively doing that. I don't actually do that with the Mac in this test, but if I was doing that with the Mac, then the Mac would even have the gap of mined volume would be even larger. So the Mac is essentially just putting lasers on and just chilling. If the rock dies on that tune, we put it on another rock, and it doesn't have to move, right? Which is the biggest benefit, and that's really the point I'm trying to illustrate. If you were not going to use a porpoise or an orca for that second account, double Mackinaw is probably going to get you more yield for time spent. And also it's just the procedure is a lot simpler as well too. So right now I'm moving the Hulk, got to move it over away from the Mackinaw there, just so we have kind of our own set. And I'm making sure these guys are all mining the exact same ore type, so that there's a straight comparison for value. Obviously inventory estimate value is different than what compressed value is, and also what market value truly is, but we're using that metric to kind of show the difference. So we're already coming off grid with the Hulk, and the Mackinaw is just still chilling. But that's why I'm a big advocate for just like getting into that porpoise really soon. It's going to 2x your yield. You're essentially going to make the same if that other character was doubling down on a Mac or a Hulk, depending on whatever. But that compression just makes things so simple. And actually, while we're kind of watching this footage, I want to talk about. I frequent a lot of systems in high sec, but like one of those systems that I actually do frequently mine in, for the longest time, I want to say for like almost a year, had a compression Athanor. This corporation had a Athanor that had compression. They had a Rotaru and stuff, and those structures are gone. I noticed yesterday or whatever they were reinforced, and now they are gonzo. And that's just one of those things too. It's like you might have a system that has a Citadel that has compression, but one day, it's only a matter of time, you're going to log in and that structure is going to be gone. And if you had not spent the time to train into a porpoise or orca to have your own compression, then you have to go and find another system. And then eventually those compression sites will go down, and then you'll have to move again and again. But like I said earlier in the video, if people are actively always looking for structures in high sec to take down, because most of the time the structures are going to be corporations they don't have the membership to defend them, so it's an easy kill. It's an easy way to get that core loot. Now, and also I'm always talking about making yourself a hard target as a miner. If you have your own compression, you can go out into a system that has no structures, that has nothing to make a miner's life easy, and you're going to have less competition out there, because every other person mining, they're going to try to mine in systems that have compression. Everybody that's looking to destroy Athanors or structures in general are going to be going to those systems as well, and they might just decide to do a sweep through the asteroid belt after reinforcing a structure and take out a few miners. So by having your own compression, you can mine in systems that are not very attractive to gankers or structure bashers or other miners. So then you actually kind of win out on opposing competition. Now, obviously, like a competition in high sec, they'd have to be like a crazy amount of miners in a system to really kind of ruin your mining day as far as yield. But like I've told you stories before in the past where my corp of 3 people could kill a 9 belt system in like a couple of hours, and that happens, right? That'll happen. And like if that's the system that you're operating in, by the time you log in for the day, you finally have some time to mine. You log in, all belts are gone. Now you have to go look for another system. And so compression is just so important now. And the reason why I recommend the Mac or the porpoise is because it aligns fast, it works as a transport, it gives you those boosts. And if you really do want to kind of just stretch out your dollar for the most part, then do double Mac and then work on that third account to be the porpoise, because at that point you'll be making profit over the Omega cost, right? We are done. All right, now that the test is over, we're going to compare everything. So the Hulk here ended up with 3.9 million in raw value, and then the Mackinaw here ended up getting 4.4 million. That doesn't sound like a big gap, but this was also only 21 minutes or so of mining. The longer you actually mine, the greater that gap would have become. And also, it's not necessarily about that match yield right there. Really, it's about like the process. And you saw from the test that I was constantly, every 4.3 minutes or so, bringing that Hulk off grid, emptying out, and I was doing everything in my power to try to do things as fast as possible on the Hulk to try to keep pace. But You have to wait on session timers and all that other stuff. Now, if you're using like an Athenor or something that you can, like a Citadel, you can actually warp up to it to 0 and then use the cargo deep deposit and then get back out, so you can skip that session change. But if you are in high sec using NPC, you have to dock, move it, wait for the session change, and then undock and then warp. So hopefully you found this video interesting. Hopefully it provides some clarity on choosing the configuration for your mining operation. And like always, keep me informed in the comments about anything you guys want to know more about. I can run math on different comparisons and things like that. So hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. If you want to support the channel and the series, consider becoming a channel member. And I will see you guys in the next one. So fly safe, keep lasers on, and all that good stuff. Peace out.